we go. When I wake up in the morning and I go to the garage, I just take in all the smells and I look at my cars. Cause that's just where I get my happiness from. Driving fast cars, kicking ass, chewing gum. But I won't ever drive a Prius even if I broke down. A hybrid on my drive, bro, you think I'm a clown. You better watch what you're driving, the cars you're buying, or you and your homies could be breathing my smoke. I really love road trips, so I'm leaving tracks. I go make a mix CD and I grab some snacks. Fool, I'm the kind of G the traffic cops just wanna see, like on a bus with no wheels, paying bribes, making deals. Been speeding most our lives, induction noise and a mountain pass. And Clarence drive a front shook pass, keep left pass right or move your ass. I've been speeding most our lives, big cone filter makes your car go brop. Chapman Speak or Red Hills Rise, induction noise is always class. Welcome back to Induction Noise, the official Carbs and Coffee podcast, brought to you by Master Panel Beaters. With me, as always, we've got Neil, Andre, Niku. Hi, guys. How you doing?
How's it?
Good.
Hello.
Feel like I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a fat minute.
It's been a fat minute. Today we are chatting about something that I feel I am. I've tried to sort of. Well, I don't want to say I've tried to sort of perfect the art of this, but I have always been fascinated by this idea that there are certain cars that carry with them a certain level of prestige, but not necessarily the price tag to match. So today's topic of conversation is how to look like a baller on a budget.
To look like a top G without being flashed like a top G.
If you ever watch, Nico Leonard's videos on YouTube, how to look god tier without spending that kind of money.
I'm not a bully, I'm a baller.
We'll have to get that song played.
Yeah.
No, we don't have the copyright for that, I'm afraid. So guys, let's fire away. What kind of things do you guys think make you look like a baller when you haven't really spent a hell of a lot of money?
So I think you can go two routes, right? You can either go and try and look super luxurious sedan type vibes, or something that looks a bit sporty or supercar-y or whatever. So either a cheap Italian Maserati, which is going to cost you an arm and a leg to maintain.
Well, I was going to say that can backfire on you horribly.
That can backfire on you horribly, especially if you need to do a clutch on a F1 gearbox on
So I
like
think
that.
we also would need to qualify it.
Yeah.
We're not talking, it doesn't mean that this is necessarily a smart financial move.
This is a financially ruinous move.
This is but any of the choices that we have now, it doesn't have to be a sensible move.
Yeah.
It just needs to be, I don't have that much money, but I need to, look
I
like
need
a
to
baller.
impress a chick or
And this
something.
is how I'm going to look like a baller.
And most of the times when you're going to try and do that, you are going to be in financial ruin with maintenance.
And let's be honest, like if people, to the average person on the outside, one of the criteria I thought about is, it is normally a brand that there's a lot of brand prestige associated with it, or not always, but
the badge is a big part of it.
The badge is for you're not gonna catch out a true petrol head. True petrol heads, like a car will know. They know what you're up to.
Well, there's ways, there's levels, right?
Yes.
There is people who know something about cars. There's things that can catch them out. There's people who know nothing about cars that just thinks, oh, this guy's rich, that you can catch out. And then there are the true petrol heads that are a bit harder to catch out.
Yeah.
So here's one that I've kind of picked up on that I think is reasonably universally accepted as something that'll definitely make you look like a baller on a budget. And that is cars that are not necessarily mainstream manufacturers. So cars that suffer massive depreciation.
Yes.
And there, I think you can end up buying a lot of car for your money if you're looking at stuff like slightly older Jags,
Exactly what I'm
slightly older, higher-end BMWs and Mercs, because
The kind of limos, the big-
a 3 Series keeps its value reasonably well, but a 7 Series depreciates like mud.
It costs less than a 3 Series of the same year.
You can buy a low mileage 7 Series for much less than a high mileage 3 Series at some stage. So, you go for the big luxury barges, which is a bigger, more expensive, more luxurious car,
And it's a better car
and it's
in all
technically
ways.
a better car, but it's
just
cheaper.
expensive to maintain, but that's why they're cheap.
That's the thing. But at the same time, I must admit, I've done this once or twice where I've bought, for example, I had an E-Class Mercedes, which is not quite S-Class, but I mean, E-Class is 5 Series level.
Yeah.
And I drove that car for a long time, and I never had any issues with it. I had the 99 Jag XJR, which granted was a very low mileage example, but again, I mean, I had that car for almost 3 years, and I never had an issue with it. It didn't cost me any money to run other than putting petrol in it. And I put a lot of petrol in it.
That's all you did.
But,
so
I mean, that was a car that cost me 220 grand, but it looked like $1 million.
But I think today, if you wanna look like a baller, right? So unless you've got an E-Type or something, an older car's not going to do that for you, right? An old car's not going to give you
Well, it depends.
a modern classic or something's not going to do that.
If you drive an old Merc, it's just an old Merc. But if you drive an old Jag, especially with Jags, because they had such a traditional look, you kind of get away with it because people still think that they're very expensive cars.
Some older, like a I'm talking about not a 4.2, like a 380s, those old ones.
So
Yeah,
my
maybe.
idea would be with the Jag and not even go back that far, is the XF.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of car for the money.
luxury looking car, and you're gonna pay
Yeah.
under 200 grand for one.
Yeah,
and it's not
that's-
gonna be that financially ruining.
Or go for the Aston badge, get the cheapest Vantage you can find. I know it's a bit more money, but if people
I'm with you on this because
what
you
I'm
can
saying
get,
what I'm
you
saying
can get
is
a
it's-
half decent
what
V8
I'm s-
Vantage
yeah.
for like 400, 500
what I'm
K,
saying
which
is it's not that much money. You can't even buy.
But it looks like $1 million.
I think you can buy a Golf for that these days.
No,
You can't buy
you
a Golf
can't
for
even
that,
buy a
bro.
Golf. You can't buy a new Golf for that.
You're
can't
basically
even-
buying a new Polo.
You
Yeah.
can buy an
You're
average.
buying a high-end new Polo.
You can buy
for
a
that kind.
Polo with some extras, or with some options ticked.
Yeah.
So and that is talking to the brand. That's an Aston Martin, and it looks $1 million.
It
You are
looks
going to
stunning,
drive past the restaurant and everyone's going to go, that guy's driving $1 million car.
I'm going to
Yeah,
turn my
100%.
head whenever there's an Aston Vantage
even
driving
as
past.
a car
I'm
guy.
gonna look up. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a freaking hot car, and I'm gonna forget for a moment that hey, actually, it costs less than a Golf.
But now, here's the thing with Astons, and if you go and speak to people who have looked at Astons and not bought them and ask them why they didn't buy them,
If you say XKL, I'm gonna shove a mic up your
no. If you go and speak to guys who looked at Astons and didn't buy them, 99% of the time, it's because they're terrified that the cars are horribly expensive to maintain.
Yes,
And an Aston is
not that bad.
It's really not that bad. The trick is, don't take it to the agents. Take it to someone like Divan Wenzel, who genuinely knows what he's doing on those cars. He orders the parts from the UK, and it comes out at roughly half of what the agents would quote you for exactly the same job. And generally speaking, from that V8 Vantage era onwards, their cars are pretty reliable. They're fairly bulletproof. They're not the fragile little things that the old DB7s and earlier cars were. So you can daily drive that car
And you can
with
have a manual.
confidence, and you can have an Aston. Right, guys, I just want to take another quick second to thank our incredible sponsors over at Master Panel Beaters. Stephen and his team just returned another car back to us, and I genuinely can't tell you what a difference it has made to the way that car looks. It basically looks brand spanking new, and I work in the trade, and I can spot spray work and stuff that's been done to a car. I can't tell that they've worked on this car. It is that good. So if you have any cosmetic work or structural work that needs to be done to your car, take it down to Stephen and his team at Master Panel Beaters. They are very reasonably priced, and like I said, the quality of their work is just insane. So thank you, Master Panel Beaters, for making this entire series possible. And let's get back to the show.
So I think if you've got a bit more money, if you've got enough money for a new car, for a new Polo, right? Then
Buy an Aston.
Then if you really want to look like a baller, that's going to make you look like a real baller.
Yeah.
There's very
And
few
then-
people who doesn't know a lot about cars.
Yeah.
Even rich people. If you go park the thing there, they're going to oh, okay.
And if you maybe want to look a bit more sporty and you've got a bit more budget, let's say 100 or 200 grand more budget, the V8 R8 is also not a bad option.
The entry level R8,
Yeah.
but the badge is a problem.
Not only is the badge a problem, the R8 was a hand-built car, the first gen Audi
Okay.
R8, and they do have little reliability issues, and because they were comparably speaking to other VAG products, they were a very low volume product. Parts are not cheap.
But you sound
I mean-
very practical for someone who just wants to be a baller.
be a
If you
baller.
really want to be a baller, you
Yeah,
can't
I
be a
mean-
bully and worry about the prices, dude.
Which is fine and fair enough. But if you blow a bulb on the rear taillight on an R8 first gen, I know that's a 14 grand problem.
If you're born on a budget, you just leave it. You just drive it in the day.
You
don't
just drive
fix it.
fast enough so they don't
Yeah, they
catch you,
don't.
bro.
But if you drive fast enough, you're going to have to do the brakes at some stage, and the brakes on an R8 ain't cheap either.
But can't you like, I mean, on that topic, because I know like with fast Audis, Galados, I've heard like Lambos, all these brakes are they share it's the same brakes, right? The R8 and the Galado
Yeah,
shares
it's
the
the
same.
same.
Probably.
Well,
It's
they're,
a
they're all
shame
pretty much
platform.
made by Brembo.
Are there not any aftermarket options
you
for
can-
those
you
these
can
days?
There
Probably
are,
get
but they're still
EBC
huge.
or-
They are
They're-
massive
They're
brakes.
still the thing is that it's the size and the performance. So it's not that Audi is particularly overcharging you for those parts.
It's
just
expensive
that
brakes.
The parts are
It's
expensive.
supercar brakes.
It's a
6-spot calipers and
the
stuff.
R8 is not a lightweight car, but it is a high-speed car. And when you've got something that's high speed that needs to slow down quickly, you need big brakes. And it doesn't come cheap, unfortunately.
I would have never thought
But if
to
you're
say
cruising
that.
as a baller down Clifton and you're parking it in
Well, if
front
you're
of
going everywhere on
if you're parking in front of
K's an
Caprice,
hour, just going
and,
wop, wop, wop,
wanna
then
pull the bonnets,
then it's
then-
perfect.
That's perfect.
I would have never thought to hear the words Aston is cheaper to maintain than an Audi.
It is.
there's many things that are cheaper to maintain than an Audi.
Yeah.
So
Alphas.
I've decided to give myself I've made an executive self-decision. So it's just a decision for myself and said what two cars would I buy if I really wanted to act like, maybe something to daily drive and then something to drive on weekends. And I decided to go Porsche. So I thought something like Gen 2 Cayenne and then maybe Boxster S, Gen 1 Boxster S. I think people, if you've got
When you
people
said
drive by.
when you said Porsche, I was going to fight you on it, but a Boxster is still, it's got a badge.
Entry level
Yeah.
Boxster for people who don't
and
know.
it's 200 grand.
It's
Yeah,
a Porsche.
exactly.
For 200 grand, you can
And
have
it's a decent Porsche. It's
and
not a
they're
bad car.
They're not expensive to run
Plus,
either.
from what I'm hearing, the Cayennes, if you buy something like the V6 petrol, right, it was the same with the Touaregs as well. They said as long as you stick with the petrol ones and it's properly maintained, it's a good service history, at least from what I'm hearing, is you're buying a fair amount of cars that should be fairly
It's a lot
reliable.
of car for the money.
So,
but once again, you're not thinking baller, bro. It's got to be a Turbo S. It's gotta be-
yeah,
it's
or
gotta be-
GTS. I've got I would be if I like a Gen 2 Cayenne GTS. For
Yeah,
me, it
that
looks
old-
really.
old
It's got to be a
Gold.
Turbo,
Yeah.
bro. You need to.
Yeah, yeah.
This,
And then
Nah, you just put a cone filter on.
if you really want to look like a baller, you do what everyone's doing and put the rally livery on it. Hoo-hoo.
yeah, that's like
Some
Then you're
Rothman's
bored.
colours, some lift
So,
springs,
yeah,
and then
But
you're
you know,
Yeah.
for me, just because everyone's doing that now, I don't want to do that anymore because everyone's doing it. So I just
Slam it on the ground.
sorry, where do you guys live? You're in what Somerset West, Brackenfell. Where do you live again?
Gardens.
Oh yeah, okay, no, it's fine. I understand. I understand. It's too mainstream now.
It's very mainstream in
Very
town.
mainstream.
But
very
but
mainstream.
5 years ago, Neil would have had a Carrera 4S, hopped up on a Safari kit and a
Oh,
Cayenne.
don't get me started. I've changed my mind a little bit on that, but we'll keep that for the separate.
So here's a funny one. So it's a bit more difficult now because they're getting a bit more expensive now. But they're getting a bit older now. But well, a few years ago, I would say 3-4 years ago, if you had Alpha 4C that you could buy for 500k at that point.
Which was a fucking steal.
No. I mean, you could buy them used for like 500.
Were they even 500k? Were
No,
they that
no,
price?
they were 550, 600.
550-ish.
Used,
But I
right?
mean, that's a bargain.
They were 550, 600 used for cars that were 5 years old or whatever, which was decent from a depreciation point of view, because the
Yeah.
guys paid like 890 for the first
Yeah.
ones. So after 5 years or whatever, going down 4 or 5 years, going down to 650 or going to 550, 60, it's not bad.
Not bad, yeah.
But it did look like a much more expensive car.
Yeah, 100%.
It still looks like a much
Yeah, it
more
still
expensive
looks
car.
like
Yeah.
it,
It
even
looks
looks,
like an
more
exotic.
expensive than it is now.
But the thing is, it looked because it was quite. Now it looks like getting a bit older. The design. Then it was kind of cutting edge. The design was kind of. It looked better than some of the supercars at the
I
time.
don't know. I
if it's only my
I
opinion,
drive a
but-
lot of old cars, so yours is still pretty cutting edge for me.
Yeah, but it's already 10 years old, right?
That's crazy.
But when it was kind of new-ish, it was quite a striking. The design was even more striking.
But yeah, it's still very striking.
But when I was a little bit younger, something like a Alpha GT, 3.2 GT. It's a
Yeah.
V6. It's got that V6 sound. It's a coupe. It's
Yes,
sleek.
yes.
Now they're getting a bit older, so if somebody, it's not that expensive a car,
Yeah.
but you can buy them for under 100k or around 100k.
Dude, you'll pay like
It's
80
a
grand
lot of
for
car
an
for
iPhone,
that
yeah.
money. That's like cheap, very little money.
Yeah.
It sounds great. It looks great.
I'd like to throw another Italian in there. Maserati Quattroporte.
Thank you. That was actually,
Yeah.
if I had to choose one,
Yeah.
I think the Quattroporte would be it. You can buy it for under 300k.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
One of
they're,
those.
they're cheap cars now.
Financial suicide.
Absolutely.
I've heard, but I'm so keen on doing it.
Allegedly.
I'm so keen on doing that.
So what goes wrong on them?
The clutch is normally the thing.
You know the door lock where you pull the door handle, right, and the door opens? That's the only thing that doesn't break.
No, so they are prone to shit, to like little things all over, electronics, etc. It's just they are prone to it in general. I think it's a bit overhyped, probably. Mechanically, the obviously the clutch is a very expensive thing, but it's the same as with the other F1.
If you look at Quattroportes, there is a version of it, slightly later version. You're probably going to pay a little bit more money for it, but that had a proper Slushmatic Autobox with a torque converter.
There is.
Yeah,
I want one of those.
yeah, that's the one you want. You don't want the one with the F1 box.
It's the one with the knob, not.
Yeah.
But I mean, the
not
F1
with
box is
the-
also. I mean, the F1 box, like the Ferraris and stuff, it is.
It's actually a great gearbox.
Yeah,
I enjoy driving them.
It's expensive, but as long
But
as you budget for it.
in something like a Quattroporte, it doesn't make sense.
No.
Why not?
Because the Quattroporte it's not a supercar. It's not a racing car. It's a big, comfy,
If you
lug
got a
show
big comfy
barge.
car that looks expensive and sounds like a race car, how much of a baller do you want to look?
How much of a baller are you going to look every time it rips your neck off when you're changing gear?
It was planned,
And it
man.
sounds freaking cool. That's all that matters.
I planned
So
it
it
that
does
way.
sound
Straight
freaking
pipe,
cool.
straight pipe.
See, Andre is thinking about his passengers that he would have as a baller. You know, what's going to shake them the most?
So, like, are they going to be
Shake
able
it
to snort what they ever want to from the side? You know, from the what is it? The kiddie seat in between the. You
Yeah, you know,
can't
like
shake them around
in
much.
the Rolls Royce, you've got the front seats have got these picnic tables that fold down. In the Maserati, there's just a mirror that folds down so you can chop your cocaine on it.
A mirror with the old credit card.
And that brings me to what I think would be the actual baller on a budget car. The nail in the coffin. Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow.
Like the old ones.
Yeah.
Like a.
Because they are
Buy them
about-
for 300, 400k, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
300, 400k.
I
and
agree with
they
you. Or
still
the
look-
Bentleys or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Rolls-Royce-
the 80s model.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Possibly even more financially ruinous than a Quattroporte.
Could be.
Could be, yeah.
But it looks
But
like a
they're
baller
also,
car.
Yeah.
They're also quite a funny thing to drive. I don't know if you've ever driven an
No,
old
never.
Rolls.
I've
but
never
they
driven
had
a Rolls point.
They had this hydraulic system where everything ran on mineral oil.
Oh, yeah.
So the suspension and the brakes were linked
No,
with this mineral
that
oil.
sounds like a bad
forgot-
idea.
Yeah, I
It
forgot
sounds like a
about
bad
that.
idea.
Okay, I
but
forgot about
here's
that.
the funny thing about it. When you first start driving them, and you kind of get used to it and you drive around it, but I think in an emergency situation, it might still be an issue. The brakes feel like they've got a delay effect to them. So you literally you put your foot on the brake and then like you wait a second and then there is some retardation happening
You
here.
called, sir? I would like to
Good
brake.
sir, would you like to slow down now? Thank you kindly.
Giovanni, bring me the brake pedal.
I'd like to add something to that I feel will not, in my maybe I'm being too enthusiastic about this, but another 4-door German coupe-like car. You're gonna know what it is because I think you like them as well.
CLS.
CLS, Batmobile. Oh, yes, I love it.
So I think
The
that's
AMG, I love it. Or the
AMG
500 could also
And
be.
they are dirt cheap now.
Yes.
I think they're like proper.
They are cool.
The only problem with them
Black.
is, unlike a lot of the other cars we've discussed, the CLS is almost impossible to sell. So you can get it, you'd be married to it, and you'd look like a baller, but you're never going to sell that
So
car.
you're always going to look like a baller. Sounds like a win.
Like a baller.
Why are they not selling? Why
No one wants them. I don't know why.
I love
you
them.
just can't sell them.
I also me
Because Rob had the E-Class, right? He had the E63, which is also damn cool as a
Yeah.
baller car.
Yeah.
But it needs to be black. The green was cool, but a baller car needs to be black. A black S-Class. A black S-Class V8. One of the
Yeah.
ultimate baller
Well,
cars.
I was going to say that the S-Class, the S500, is baller budget heaven.
Yes, black S-Class. Now, if you really want to take the baller thing very far, but that's getting a bit more expensive, is the S65 AMG.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
But that is a proper car.
Yeah.
It's like 1,000 Newton meters of torque, that thing is.
That's stupidness.
We're just telling people ways to bankrupt themselves, guys.
Yes.
I'm not sure this is the service we should be providing.
Well, you want to be a baller or not? You got to risk it for the biscuit.
You want to look like a baller. You don't want to be a baller.
So I'll give you like something that's maybe like a bit of a different baller on a budget. Not, I mean, now it's going to be baller on a budget with something that's a lot of mileage, but I think it's got a lot of prestige around the brand still. Is I think the Land Cruiser 100s, the big Land Cruisers. You know, you can get them for 200-300. They're not maybe baller, but I think having something with that much road presence, or if you really want to now, you get the Lexus versions, right, of that as
The
well.
Lexus ones are just ugly, man.
The 200. No, not the ones that's like
LX570 or
2-3
whatever it
million, but like, your 2005, 2006.
But but I think, in my opinion, they're just the other way around. They are super expensive for something that doesn't look that expensive. The same with the newer Prado or whatever. You can buy a Range Rover,
I was
a
just about
much
to say
newer
that
Range Rover
I would
for
rather,
less money.
I would
that
buy the
looks
Range Rover.
like, and the Range Rovers were twice the price when they were
And
new.
the Range Rover is nicer to drive, if I'm being brutally
Well,
honest.
it looks like it's a baller car, bro. If
Oh,
you've
yeah.
got
The Range Rover is a good entry for baller on a budget.
I would say it's an entry, but it's a good car. Well,
It's also a good way to bankrupt yourself.
some of them. it is probably, and based on some of our friends that have owned them before. I know Jonathan had one that he spent more on the car than the car cost him, pretty much.
Yeah.
They are.
That's not unlike a lot of ownership stories with Range Rovers.
They are notoriously expensive. The suspension, everything.
But again,
the diffs have a
specifically-
lifetime. They're like,
specifically
it
with-
should be done every 90,000 k's.
Yeah.
It should explode. You must just.
But they sealed as well, apparently, those diffs. What is it? Because I've got a friend who bought one recently, and when he started looking around and shopping around and,
How's
and
that
asking
going for him?
advice,
You're talking about
I've not heard of him from a while. Maybe I must ask him. He's maybe
maybe
He's
sleeping.
still stuck at the side of the road.
Maybe he's
No,
sleeping
no,
out
he-
in the street.
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
he's
No airtime
living under a
because
box now.
yeah, spending all his airtime on maintenance, I guess. Calling guys, but I've heard like interesting stories about like certain fluids that some guys say no, you shouldn't. There's lifetime or vice versa.
but I mean, there are lots of like gearboxes, for example, that they say are sealed for life. You don't service them, but
Assuming you expect a lifetime of 160 or 200,000 k's.
yeah. And most cars live longer than that, so you do need to service them. You do need to drain that oil off and replace it at some stage, and it's not a major thing to do. I mean, I did that on what car did I do that on? I think it was on my MX-5 was the last one I did that on, and I did it on my BMW as well. I had the gearbox just flushed and oils replaced. It's not a major train smash to do it, but it's worth doing to extend the life of the box.
I've just come to a realization.
You need
know
to do the
how
oil.
we-
You haven't done an oil change on your Alpha in 6 years.
No, there I'm good. You know, we spoke about a few weeks ago about the overrated, underrated, what. One of the vehicles we spoke about was the Mustang. And the one word we were not going to say in one sentence is a Mustang and 4-cylinder.
Yes.
But that's what most people probably buy to look like a baller on a budget. 'Cause
yeah, and
they
they end up looking like an idiot, not a baller.
Yeah,
Not about-
Until they hear you.
As
When
long
you-
as you
when
don't
the
start
car-
the car.
As long as
Yeah.
you don't start the car, you're fine.
But to a non-car person, they're going to be like, oh, it's a Mustang.
Yeah.
If you want to do the selfie or you
Yeah,
want
I
to do
got my Mustang.
for the
Here I go.
Insta
Do you
video, for the Insta video, it's going to work. You can always overlay a V8 on there or something, like a Formula One engine sound over it, or the F-Type 4-cylinder.
Or
That's
the
also another.
But the 6-cylinder F-Type is cheaper than the 4-cylinder F-Type.
What?
Second-hand. Yeah.
Your
Second-hand,
second,
yeah.
no, it's just because it's newer.
Oh, but are you going
but if you
to
wanted
be a
to buy a
baller
new
on a
one.
budget new?
No, but it's for people who want to buy a new car and be a baller or look like a baller.
But that would be sad. I'm going to be a baller. I'm going to
Audi
buy
A8.
Audi A8.
Used Audi A8.
But
Although they are a bit
Transporter.
older now, they don't.
Yep.
I love Luxo barges like that, and I know that the S class is probably the best one to go for in terms of looking like a baller or whatever. But I think the one that I would actually buy with my own money is the LS460. Because that is a phenomenal car, and
then
I
you
don't
Does it
think
look like a baller?
It
It
just
kind
looks
of
like a
looks.
pensioner. Like, it looks like there's a lot of baller but hanging somewhere. But you know,
You look more like a bully than a baller. with a Alex.
you'll look like a rich bully.
There
but
are
you will
things
be a
that you
bully,
can
not a
do
baller.
to rectify the situation. You can chrome the wheels, make it black. Maybe have a one of those. Put the stickers on it, man. You could wrap it. You could wrap it. Eh?
No.
Put big subwoofers in the back.
Put a
You
wrap on
don't
it
need
like
big
Eminem.
subwoofers in the back. That thing's got a Mark Levinson
Yeah,
sound
but remember,
system.
they must see it. When you open your boot, you must see the sub.
But can they see the two Rockford Fosgate subs?
Nah.
the stigma
Oh,
around
man,
it is just not.
can you imagine the blasphemy of taking a Mark Levinson sound system out of a Lexus to replace it with a couple of Rockford Fosgate subs?
You're not taking it out. You're just adding a bit of oomph to it.
basically, you're taking
More
its
bass.
power and you're pulling it away.
That's like
Put an extra star sound amp just for the extra.
that's like putting a Rolex movement in a Mickey Mouse watch.
But you mentioned that the A8 when I think it's like the mid 2000s. That A8, there was a wheel option would look like a chrome. It was like a 20-inch or something like that. It was probably one of the biggest rim
That
sizes.
looked baller
you could-
out of the box.
Yeah, exactly. It looked really, really good on that car. That was like the top spec one had that
It was
sort of.
it was that diamond cut wheel.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's the one.
No, that was a really cool looking
I
car.
must say, from buying new cars, I must say, whether you like the looks or not, it does look quite striking in a baller kind of way. And this is the Supra. The Supra has
Oh,
quite.
yeah.
It makes a statement.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, it does make a
once again
statement.
one of the best cars, sports cars, whatever out there currently.
The thing is,
it's awesome car.
I just think that car deserved to have a manual gearbox from the beginning, and we're only just getting the manuals now.
And the issue
And the
is
manuals-
they're fucking expensive.
Exactly,
I think
the
they're fine.
manuals. The manuals.
That
are
8-speed
at
box is
such a
brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the 8-speed box isn't brilliant, but
It didn't need a manual.
a manual.
But it's cool with a manual. It doesn't need it.
I want a manual.
I also think, like, for some reason, I feel like the auto. There's just some of the characteristics seems to have suited it quite well. If you read all the
Yeah,
reviews,
for
if
sure.
you look at all of that, it's also, of course, the BMW component. But that Supra outran so many cars that are so much faster.
But that gearbox
lap
is
times.
solid, dude.
Yeah,
it's
it's-
just a pity that it doesn't have the Alfa Giulia, those nice little. It's got the same box, but it doesn't have.
Yeah,
those
it doesn't
nice
have proper
chunky
pedals. Yeah.
Pedals.
sit on the steering wheel.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
also
I
not
like all
column
the
mounted.
like the cheap Germans do.
I don't like paddles that are not column
column
mounted.
mounted. Yeah.
Oh, so then you basically Italians are your only option.
Yeah.
I'll give you
And,
another.
and Aston.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you another one, another Italian one.
And
It's
Bentley, actually. Come to think of
Oh.
it, Bentley also have column-mounted pedals.
Not the Italian
car-
option.
A car in that your dad's got the right spec. A black 195.
159.
159.
Yeah.
159
That is kind of
Alpha.
true. That's
That
kind
is
of
bit of
true.
a
that is a
baller.
baller.
My
That's a
dad's a
baller
bit
car.
of. My dad does look like a bit of a baller. Yeah,
not
he's
a
got.
baller.
He's got a black Alpha 159, but it's the proper villain spec. 159 Ti, black with black wheels, and it sits very low. They come from the factory like that. It's got it sits very low. There's big wheels on it, black interior. It looks like a proper mafia car.
That's
With
a proper baller on
it's
a
got
budget.
It's got the
I
hole for the Tommy
genuinely-
gun and
Yeah,
everything
it's
like
got
we
the hole for
heard
the
from
Tommy
Nico.
gun.
Like I've said
Alice.
before, I've never owned an Alpha, but that is a car that I lust after. I
And it
want
actually
a 159
and it's a manual
Ti
and it drives that thing
1750.
drives really well. And it's solid, it's well built. It's a bit heavier though. It's almost more like Nissan weight than Alpha weight, but it's quite solid. And it's quite chuckable. It feels
Yeah, they handle quite well.
No, that's an awesome car. And I think that's the cheapest you're going to get. But
And
it's
that's
for
not a
looking
car
like
that's going to
baller on a
ruin you
budget.
financially.
No,
either.
it's a
it's
car that
not.
costs you 150. Well, a good one is going to cost you between 150 and 200k to buy,
And then
running
you're buying
them,
like a low mileage one.
yeah,
at
and
that
to
price.
run them is not. You can actually get a 3.2, which sounds more angry.
Yeah.
It will ruin you financially if the engine does go wrong with the GM-based engine,
Yeah.
but it sounds better.
Yeah.
You get ones that look the same. Those you can get for cheap. You can get them for just over 100k sometimes.
Nicholas has a.
He's got the black. Yeah, he's got the same one as the 3.2.
But they don't drive as well
Black
as a
on black.
1750.
They're a bit heavy.
I might get like thrown out for saying this, but a car that I've really
Is it
like.
electric car?
No, it's not.
No, then you're
it's not. It's the sort of late 2000s, early 2010s, not the AMG version, but the G class, a G wagon. I really think
The normal G-Wagons
the
are
normal
great.
G-Wagon, like a normal
You know,
silver one with
But
you
they're
can-
expensive.
Look, I mean,
They're not on a budget.
But an old one looks exactly an old one for $500,000 looks exactly the same
Looks
as the
better
new
than the new
4
one.
million rand one.
But
that
it's a
you're
lot
gonna
of
buy.
money. For that money, you can buy an Aston.
Yeah. So
Which
for
is
that,
true.
I mean, you're looking at I sometimes when I lie awake at night, you know what our wives think, like, what are you thinking about? It's like I'm thinking about a G wagon. So you say you just think about nothing because you don't want to tell you thinking about a G wagon. So like I looked around, like, if you're looking, I mean, we're talking about 700-800 grand, right?
Yeah.
Which is
That's a lot.
it's a lot of money, but I mean, it's still such a. One drove by me this morning. It's such a road presence.
It's got presence,
It's such
for
a
sure.
baller car.
But I think for half the money, you can get a Range Rover that's got just as much presence and that could even look a bit more expensive.
So I have to admit, and I don't know maybe if this is a nice question for everyone to answer. Guilty pleasure cars. A G63 AMG is my guilty
No,
pleasure
man.
car.
Sis.
I can
don't
see
know
that.
why,
Sis.
Yeah.
but imagine the German that sat and designed the G63. He must have been a maniac. Because
It's
he
so
said,
useless.
it's fine though. So he basically
Such a
said,
laugh.
we've got this G-Wagon,
Gelandewagen.
the Galanderwagen.
Galanderwagen.
What are we going to do? I know what we're going
The
to
army
do.
does not need this anymore.
We're going
Make
to
it
put
fun.
a V8 in it and give it side pipes. How fucking cool is that?
I think it's cool.
That's so cool, dude. That's why it's a guilty pleasure
Look,
car. Everyone must have a guilty pleasure car that everyone's going to tell them you're off your tits.
I will absolutely grant you that the
No,
G63.
I grant you. That's a good definition of a car like that. You're off your tits.
the G63
Come pick up your
is-
tits. You're off it again, please.
It is super cool, but it's exclusively bought by morons. And the guys who drive them are, generally speaking, arrogant assholes.
So
I'm not
ballers,
gonna-
in other words.
Ballers!
Ballers.
But if they weren't that expensive, then I would suggest that as a good option.
So that's future Eurus owners, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Eurus owners in training.
They're the guys who couldn't afford the Urus, so they bought the G63, essentially.
But talking about the AMG one, the earlier ones, the G55, it wasn't as ostentatious as it still had the
Yes.
side
It's
pipes.
still at the
Yeah.
side
It,
pipes.
but it had that AMG,
4.4 litre AMG.
smaller engine, but also that 5-spoke AMG rims.
Yeah,
it was a lot
yeah.
more
And it was more off-road
Yeah,
capable.
it was
As
off-road
understated as the
more
AMG
understated
G-Wagon
as the
can
G-Wagon
be.
can
Yeah.
be. I really like that. I thought like
Yeah.
it looks like a really almost a bit like a modern classic vibe to it because
I
that
like the
5-spoke AMG
I
rims
like
for
the
me.
I like the old G wagons, the old 300D and the
Yeah,
really old ones, the 80s
The
ones.
proper Galanda
But I also
Wagens.
like the newer ones, the understated diesel G350. I like them. Not the
Not the
AMG
AMG.
ones. You
It's
can't have a car like
ostentatious and
that with
vulgar.
low profile tires. It's
Yeah.
stupid.
That's why the first gen
Stupid.
ones were better. They had
But
higher profile
you can
tires
put
on them.
other rims and tires on it if you want. I didn't want the G-Wagon to go around corners. I just want it for the
I
ostentation.
pay millions for a car
Like-
where I have to put other wheels on to make it work.
How sad is it that the best off-roader in Mercedes' stable needs a safari pack to make it off-road capable?
Well, the Mercedes has made a interesting approach to marketing here because that new GLC or whatever has that bouncing suspension. It came from the Maybach. They
Yeah,
first
yeah.
put it in the Maybach and now it's in the GLC or whatever. And they advertise it as, I don't know if you guys know this or have seen the
It helps
advertisement.
get it out of...
It's to get it out of the stand. So if you're stuck
Yes.
in sand, right, it takes the suspension and bounces it.
So it's like somebody stepping on
Yes,
the
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you
Oh,
know
that's
that,
pretty cool.
You know that gangsters that roll down the street in the
Like
air
the
ride.
lowrider.
So it's like an air ride that hops.
Yeah.
But now all the rappers are buying them and they just
They're
cruising
hopping
down
around.
the street.
They're cruising
hopping
down
around.
Mulholland Boulevard.
Okay.
So Mercedes has a
So air suspension built in or
Yeah.
air
but
jumping built in.
Mercedes are making a something they taking off roading and making people look
I think
baller
they're
with
just.
off roading.
I think they were smart. I think that it was strategy. They know who their buyers are.
Yeah.
So they made the car and they just called it an off-road thing.
Oh yeah, it's
Feature.
a
It was never meant for that.
But the G-Wagon, the Gelandewagen, if I'm not mistaken, isn't the name derived from the testing, the proving grounds where they
No.
test those cars?
Gelandewagen.
Because there's a sticker on them that maybe it's not Gelandewagen, but there's a proving grounds that all of them are that Mercedes rates that it's off-road capable. I'm like,
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that was the whole idea behind the G-Wagon.
You know, this is exactly the sort of thing that we should probably look up before we come in here to record.
well, we
stuff.
didn't. I must say, I didn't anticipate we're going to talk about G-Wagons. to be very honest, like
same.
it's,
Same. It's
So
'cause
who was
I
the
spoke
who was the
about-
person who suggested the G-Wagon in the first
just
place?
give me 5 minutes. We just put up my phone here.
But you guys must have a guilty pleasure car.
Guilty pleasure car. That's a good question.
I know.
A Ford Raptor Bucky for me is a bit of a guilty pleasure because I'm
That's
not a
awesome,
Ford guy.
Bucky.
Because I'm an Alpha guy, and whenever Alpha races, it's either
It's
you
always
scream for
against
Alpha
Ford.
whoever races against Ford. So like the Blue Bulls and it's like the Western Province and the Blue Bulls. For Ford is like a Blue Bulls for me. So for me to kind of want a Ford is I don't say it too loud.
For me, it would be ACR Viper.
That's a serious piece of kit.
That's not a guilty
It's not
pleasure.
a guilty
That's
pleasure.
just
I'm-
that's just
I
something
think-
to
I
lust
think-
after.
I think it's because when you talk about trackability, like everyone always focuses on the Porsches, and like if you put like I think everyone is always like GT3 RS, GT3 RS, but honestly, if you put a GT3 RS and the last ACR Viper next to one another, and if you tell me you have to take one home now, I would probably take the ACR Viper.
The Viper is definitely more loud and proud, and it's really in your face.
Yeah.
It's
You
just
got to
something
work
that-
driving that.
Maybe
thing.
it's just because it's completely
The aero on that thing is crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's hectic. It's hectic. That's
and it's
awesome
and
car.
it's no replacement for displacement. Eh?
Uh-huh.
That's still 8
No.
liter. Eh?
8-liter V10, yeah.
Yeah.
V10 baby.
So yeah, a guilty pleasure car for me. That's
It's a hard question.
it's a tough one. I think. Well,
Is it a Urus perhaps?
no, just no.
Tesla?
Chimney?
Tesla?
Chimney?
Do you know what?
Oh God.
I actually. So there's a couple of options. The TVR I don't really think is a guilty pleasure.
No,
I think
it's
it's
not.
just awesome despite its flaws. I do quite like the idea of the Raptor Bucky
There you
because it is just stupid. and
I
makes
love
no
it.
sense whatsoever,
Yeah.
and I kind of like that about it. But because I have a horrible commute, and
Here it comes.
Here comes the lady shaver.
I must admit, for daily purposes, for no other reason whatsoever,
Just say it.
Sure, it's quite a
Just
run up.
for-
I'm getting worried now.
just for daily purposes, not as a
The longer it takes, the
as
more worried I get.
as a transport appliance for getting from A to
We had
B.
appliance. Oh my word.
A Tesla.
Oh my word! You're lying.
You're not shitting me.
No.
On that bombshell.
Like if I
Well, guys,
I couldn't live with only a Tesla in my garage. I'd need to have something that burns fossil fuels, makes noise, and pisses off Greta. But as a means of transportation to simply get me from here to work as comfortably, as quietly, and as efficiently as possible, I don't think you can really beat something like a Tesla.
Or
I would-
Taycan.
Well, a Taycan would be brilliant as well. I'd love one of those.
I think we, especially
But
with people.
I think a nice electric car, something like a Taycan or a Tesla. Tesla maybe not, because the Tesla,
Like
I
an
think...
electric Citroen Palace.
No!
I tend to agree with. I think it's a very good point, because I mean if you start looking the way that the petrol price is going, right, and the way that we all kind of like already. Now we have to keep that for a separate discussion, but with our energy crisis, people already have a fair amount of ability to, with infrastructure on their own roofs to charge something like that. So if you're purely looking at running costs, right, keep something that would be my ideal future too, right? If I have to commute, I would ideally have something super interesting in the garage that I can drive on the weekends. But if you need to commute, electric car, I think makes a lot of sense.
For me, it would have to be a hybrid.
But I have to stress,
Yeah.
I have to stress very vehemently that it would not be an environmental decision to buy an electric car.
We need to
Because-
make it clear, Mr. Key wants to destroy the environment, but he may buy a Tesla.
If I buy an electric car, it'll be because I want an electric car, not because I want to save the planet, because electric cars are never going to save the planet.
Well, can we dive into this a little bit? Where
This is
did you
an
come?
entire episode on
That
the
is an
Where
episode
did you
in its
get
own.
that? Where does this come from all of a sudden? Like, I really want to know.
Where
Like,
does I maybe want a Tesla car?
yeah, where does
I'm
the
worried, bro. This podcast was really amazing.
No,
We love
look,
talking about
seriously,
cars and stuff.
I've always said electric
question.
cars as a transport appliance, as something to get you from A to B, it's a brilliant idea. I don't see the problem with them. I just don't think that they are the planet-saving eco boxes that people make them out to be, because they
Yeah.
are not as environmentally friendly as people claim. And secondly, cars on the whole are not the problem that's causing the vast majority of our pollution. So even if you take all the cars off our roads and replace them with electric, you're still not going to be fixing the problem. So for what they are, they're brilliant. But for what they're being marketed as, they're stupid.
There's a lot of hype around it. I
Yeah.
agree. But I do think they've got their benefit. I've driven quite a few hybrids now. And I kind of like the idea. Not the one I drove in Italy recently that's called a hybrid, but it does nothing. But I've driven some other hybrids, and it's really cool, having to... Actually saw the most insane thing. We were at Sirmione in Italy, at this little... at Lake Garda. We were walking around, and there was this red Ferrari coming around, driven by a lady of about... I don't want to guess the lady's age, but it must be between 60 and 70, I would guess, with her mother with her, probably, that's about 90-something. She was driving this Ferrari 296, beautiful car.
nice.
Came, I actually had a little video of it. Came past in electric mode. Quiet. It's coming past me. And then it starts up. And there she goes. It was just it was mind-boggling to see that, but I realized that in that use case, it's like this island. There's like so many cars. There's nowhere to walk. Everybody's stuck in traffic. People are walking, bicycles. You actually don't want a whole lot of cars idling there and like whatever. So it was actually perfect. If you're stuck like that. If you're stuck like that, it was cool.
It's actually, it's an interesting point that you make. I mean, I've been fortunate. I've driven a few EVs, and I've driven a Tesla as well, and I've spent some time commuting in a Tesla, it's mainly around Dubai.
Where there's such a shortage of petrol.
Yeah, I mean, if like the infrastructure also in terms of serviceability, and we've discussed this previously as well, how it opens up the market quite a lot, I think, for people to use cars as, purely to enjoy as well. Other cars, because it just simplifies other aspects of owning of motoring as well.
Yeah,
But it's an interesting.
So on that bombshell, guys, I think we've gone from looking like a baller to driving an electric car.
Are we on the ball on the budget topic still? Is this where we're going to?
Oh, we've derailed quite a bit on that one. I'll
We
tell you
did
that.
derail a little bit because Niku wanted to know what my guilty pleasure is.
I was hoping it was some weird fetish or something rather than a Tesla, but here we are.
There's no induction noise on that one. But yeah, thanks for coming in, guys. We will
awesome.
join you again next week with something else. It's going to be a little bit of a surprise topic. I don't think you guys have prepared for that one. But yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again.
Stay classy, San Diego.
Stay classy.
What a curveball! What a curveball!
I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, tonight on Piers Morgan Uncensored, Quentin tells us like he likes an electric vehicle.